Hey guys, this is David for iveypoker.com, and today we're going to be looking at a hand history for, I believe it's the Big 55 on Pokerstars. I'm not 100% sure about that, but yeah, it should be a pretty interesting hand history. I believe our hero makes a pretty deep run. It's not me, it's a friend of mine. And yeah, I haven't looked at this hand history yet, but yeah, I'm expecting there'll be some interesting spots, hopefully. I'm going to go pretty quickly through the early stages, just because, there's not really that much to talk about in general. Um, Obviously, if any spots do come up, I'll talk about it. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. This is my first MTT video for Lego Poker, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it. Um, yeah, I was, in the past I've done quite a bit of coaching and videos for MTTs or sit and goes, so I certainly do have the experience there. So hopefully this, yeah, will be interesting enough to you guys. Here, it's obvious, pretty easy fold. In general, as long as either of these two players are a fish, I would probably just call here with any two suited cards. I don't hate, folding like 9 deuce suited, for example, but in general, I would personally call as long as one of them is a fish, just because it's a min raise and you're so deep, you're 150 BBs deep. Whenever you flop, trips or two pair or like a flush, you're generally gonna get like decent value, and they're just gonna make mistakes, overall. And yeah, it should be profitable to call the off any two suited cards. Deuce 3 off, I would fold, but I would probably call like 6 7 off or something like that. It does depend on how confident you are post flop as well. Like if you're not feeling so great about your post flop game, like a lot of MTT players feel, then it's obviously gonna be fine to call a bit tighter in general. And that's not just for that spot, obviously. It's just in general, the more confident um, the more comfortable you are post flop, the wider you can call, the wider you can raise, and so on. Because when you do get post flop, your EV is going to be better. Here, I would generally fold this hand. Calling or three betting are both, possible options. I usually wouldn't, but it's something you can occasionally do. Ace four off on the cutoff here. In general, one of the things I find is most MTT players, like I would say, too tight pre-antes. Especially from late position, like small button and cutoff in particular. I would say on the cutoff, like ace four off is kind of a marginal open in general, and if there's like two decent rigs behind, or even one maybe, I don't mind passing that. But if everyone is behind is kind of weak, I wouldn't mind opening like any ace in general. I would generally almost always open every suited ace though, unless maybe if you're really unconfident or not confident post flop, and all three players are very good rigs or something, you could probably fold like the weak suited aces. But in general, I would open like every suited ace and every pair, every suited Broadway, most Broadways depending on who's behind, and as well. I find a lot of players that I've done coaching with even fold hands like Jack 10 suited, which I think is way too tight, and I certainly think it's very important that you're opening hands like that, just because there's so much value. And firstly, I mean, you're gonna just pick up the blinds a lot of the time, which doesn't really matter too much to be honest. But it's not bad to do that. And also, just when like someone calls, the button is the only one that has position on you. So 2 out of 3 of the players who could call are out of position, and you obviously have an advantage there. And hands like Jack 10 suited just flop quite well. They can make pretty strong draws, two pairs, straights and straight draws and or whatever. And again, as long you generally will get quite a lot of value, especially when there's a weaker player involved in the pot. This guy just makes a 480. Well done. 6-4 off. I would on the button. I don't mind opening. I also don't mind folding. Ooh, jacks. So jacks we open 3x. Sizing wise, I don't mind anywhere between 2x to 4x. It's really kind of a style thing. In a really soft tournament, and I mean something like maybe the Sunday Storm or like a $2 freeze out, I wouldn't really mind making it even bigger because people are going to call anyway. Or maybe like a rebuy. I don't mind just, jamming aces here or something like that because people are just going to call because they can rebuy and they don't really care since it's such a small buy-in. But in any field where there's, decent players and stuff, the maximum I would make it under the gun would be 4x here. And I would do it with a balanced range. And what I mean by balanced is just, I would do it with my entire range. So if I'm opening, say, for example, I don't know, 7s plus and ace jack plus, for example, then I would make it 4x with my entire range, if I chose to make it 4x at all. I personally usually make it between 2.5 to 3x, I think. And yeah, again, it doesn't matter too much. There's advantages to all sizing. Obviously, if you make it smaller, you get a better price. But then, if you make it bigger, in general, your pots are gonna go heads up more often, or maybe three-way more often, and that's kind of good for you because you kind of isolate. You play pots with like less people, and you're gonna win the pot more often. And hands like aces or king queen or whatever generally play better when there's only one or two opponents, because your top pairs are going to be good more often. Whereas if you're like 10, like I don't know, okay, like five way, it's going to be more important to have hands like suited aces or maybe suited broadways or stuff, because they make a lot more nutted type of hands, and that's really important in multi-way pots. In any case, 3x is obviously a fine sizing, which is what we choose. We choose the bet, which is obviously fine for value. We can get called by flush draws, sevens through to tens, any suited connectors like 6-7, 5-4, those kind of hands. Um, so yeah, I think this is a pretty standard value bet in general. In general, when you're betting for value or when you're betting at all, you should think about why you're doing it. Usually, it's going to be for value, as a bluff, to take to basically win the dead money. Um, and occasionally, it's kind of a combination which involves the idea of generally getting people to fold out equity. So, for example, in this case, if I have, like, I don't know, let's say ace five, I guess, I'm not really clearly value betting because there's not really many worse hands that can call. Like, even two overs and a flush draw is gonna have, I believe, even a slight favorite. So I'm not really getting value from those hands specifically. So if I'm betting ace five, I'm kind of just trying to, like, win the dead money, like the 300 in there, and also maybe get him to fold king queen, because king queen has like between 20 to 25% equity versus a hand, which is a pretty decent amount. I mean, if I bet and he folds, I'm getting him to fold out, something like 80 chips worth of equity. Like, I mean, it's not as simple as that, obviously, since it's a multi-street game, and like turns and rivers change stuff, and we can bet on future streets and so on. But it gives you a general idea. He calls on the turn. I mean, it really depends on the player, but in general, I don't mind value betting again. He can certainly have fours, or maybe sometimes queens, because like a lot of rigs will just flat queens there, even kings occasionally. But he's certainly going to have sevens through to tens, and usually, unless he's kind of solid, I guess, is going to call them again, regardless of if he should or not. He can also call flush draws again, and maybe like 8-7 type of hands. Um, but yeah, I mean, and also a lot of players are going to raise their sets or two pairs on the flop. So if he's got 6-5 or like sixes or fives or threes, he would have raised the flop a decent amount. So in general, I'm pretty happy that I'm ahead a lot of the time here versus most players, except for solid rigs, and I would bet value again. Since our hand isn't a slam dunk value bet, I don't mind betting slightly on the smaller side to be kind of, I guess, sort of for pot control, more or less, I guess you can say. Uh, yeah, he raises, and at that point, I think it's a very easy fold, and we do that. Here we get, it goes 3x call, and I mean, I would usually call here, just given how deep we are. I mean, we're not that deep. We're like, I don't know, like 75 BBs deep or so, but I think, in general, having hands like suited aces or suited broadways, or pocket pairs are pretty good hands to call here, just because again they make nutted hands, and multi-way, even though it's only three-way, that's kind of important. And again, in the early stages in most tournaments, there are a lot of weaker players or just people making huge mistakes post-flop, overvaluing hands and just basically not folding when they should. So hands like this, we're just gonna get value when we hit, and if we don't, we can just check fold and lose 60 chips. It's no big deal. Again, if you're super uncomfortable post flop, you could probably fold here, but I would usually call. If you feel so uncomfortable that you can't really call hands like this, or queen jack suited, I would probably recommend maybe getting some coaching from either I guess you could get coaching from like an MTT player who's comfortable post flop, but even getting like some coaching from a cash game player who can just teach you some basic post flop I don't know, like ideas, or just basically make your postal game better. It would certainly be worth it, and maybe just I would recommend, like most MTT players, maybe giving like just playing a little bit of cash just to get used to playing deeper stacks and playing post flop and getting comfortable. Like, I mean, even if you're like a high stakes rig playing $100 or $50, like $50 plus MTTs on a regular basis, it's no problem if you just start practicing at 10 NL or 25 NL, or even 50 NL, where the losses are very insignificant for you. And if anything, you could even play a level where you think you're winning at, and just practice a bit. I mean, it's very easy to just load up a few tables of Zoom or whatever and just play a bit and get better, basically. Yeah, so it goes bet raise, and we have a very easy fold of our hand. King 7, we decide to raise blind versus blind. I don't mind folding here, but I don't mind raising, and we choose to bet a pretty dry board, which is fine. Again, in general, I try to go past the early stages quite fast, but I guess I've talked about a few things already.